this is my favorite bit. I get to talk to other people who like making games.
Hello.
So let's sort of start. Alex, you want to start off introducing yourself and tell people a little bit about what you do and a little bit about the game.
All right, so I'm Alex. I'm from Appxplore. We've created our first, we come from a mobile game development background, and we've developed our first blockchain game at the end of last year. We released it. It's called Krypton Crab. So it involves hatching these unique crabs that you can mutate different parts and compete with others to battle to get, crabs and grow and develop your army to join the battle arena.
Hello everyone, I'm Caterina from Cocos-BCX. So Cocos is a game engine I think most of us already know. So it's worldwide #2 by market share, and it's the #1 engine for instant games. And I'm from the Cocos-BCX part. That is a separate blockchain project that we initiated since 2017. And yeah, very happy to be here. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Nathan. I work in Animoca brands. So we are doing quite a few games. We have quite a few footprint in the blockchain gaming world. Sebastian was just right now explaining about the Sandbox, which is one of our major titles. Another one that we're working on at the moment is Formula 1 Delta Time. A very big IP that we are really happy and proud to be able to bring onto the blockchain world. Yeah, that's it.
Hi everyone, are you okay? Are you melting? Yeah? No? Oh, how about that? I'm Luna Javier. I'm from the Philippines. I am one of the co-founders of Altitude Games and its creative director. We started as a mobile game studio about 5 years ago, and we are currently working on our first blockchain game called Battle Racers. That's it.
Cool. So I think with all these things, when we're trying to think about games and blockchain, we have to start with the game. Or at least I think that. But let's start again. We'll keep going around. But so again, Alex, why blockchain in your game? Why is that an important thing?
So for what happens is we notice that for traditional games, if you are not an esports contender, for example, there's very little way for you to actually grow and to kind of get, in a sense, some form of revenue, right? Unless you're a streamer or a fantastic esports player. So what happens is with blockchain, we realize that it allows you to kind of grow assets, get some value out of your time spent into games. So when we developed Krypton Crab, we had that in mind. So you have a way to kind of grow your assets through battle or obtaining new parts, and then after that you can even trade it for and get some value in return from your time spent in the game.
So from a Cocos point of view, obviously you're the game engine, but why do you think the developers that use your engine have become interested in blockchain, and where does the BCX part of it affect that?
All right, so blockchain, first of all, it's an edge-cutting technology. So like many other avant-garde technology, the first use case they normally get to is gaming. Yeah. So we noticed the blockchain in 2017, and we witnessed the hype from the CryptoKitties. And actually, by then, Cocos already having the plan in the roadmap to launch the blockchain project. And we see that it is the right timing because the game asset trading on blockchain has slowly rising in popularity. And talking about the game asset trading, it obviously is a major business model in the games. And we see that the blockchain technology can really bring lots of value for the asset trading. For example, it can ensure the total ownership for the game asset to the gamers and the scarcity of the game asset, and as well as like liquidity, the free transfer across game, across platforms, 24/7 non-stop. Yeah, so these kind of unique features are attributed by the blockchain technology. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I think there's also another thing, because obviously Cocos is very actively used amongst the kind of instant games and kind of hyper-casual type game format. And I wonder if there's a kind of incentive there specifically, because they're quite difficult to monetize in open markets. I mean, they're good if you've got ad funding, but it's harder to get a richer, deeper experience, well, by design. So is blockchain potentially a way of unlocking new angles of how those games could monetize?
Yeah, that's a good point. So we see that the casual games or the instant games will be the most easily to adopt the blockchain technologies. That's also for Cocos engine, the framework we designed, especially focusing on for this lightweight gaming product. And blockchain, also, we see it will not just come alone by itself. The gaming in future, we see that the cloud gaming is coming with 5G era. So in future, we foresee that the blockchain technology will be integrated with the blockchain gaming, the cloud game as well.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea. So Nathan, coming back to you guys, I mean, obviously you've got multiple games, but what is it about blockchain that drives you guys, particularly because you've acquired quite a lot of experiences? What is it about the blockchain that makes that work?
So obviously, as mentioned before, the true ownership, the digitalization of the asset, and the fact that it can be tradable natively through the platform is something that has been really charming for us, something that really we see value in. Now the next step is when we actually take this technology and try to apply it to bring a better experience in terms of gaming. The design is actually the most exciting part, at least for me, because of course there is a first level where you want to tokenize probably your game assets, maybe create a digital currency that will kind of drive the economy. But this is really just the first layer. This is just the surface of what you can do through smart contracts to actually automate and create an entire economy, a gaming economy around the game, and actually not just a game, but potentially an ecosystem of games which interact with the same assets.
I think this is what excites me about the area. I mean, as a consultant, I'm not on a project full time. I get brought in on specific things, but it's often the case where people just don't understand how they want to leverage that, and particularly the mindset switch of a unique digital asset and what that then means, particularly interoperability. Are you guys starting to look at kind of how assets work between the games you work with, or is that for a later stage?
We have been looking at it, of course. The way we see it, like a lot of projects, and our projects are still quite early stage. So we see it more like when there is a full and robust experience, and then we can start to actually have these assets interoperable between, like, taking NFTs, unique items, which can be used in another game, maybe even interpreted differently by another game. One thing we are doing, for example, or we are planning to do for Formula One, is we will have a digital in-game currency, which will be the Rev token. But this token will not be only for Formula One. It's going to be a digital currency that will be driving actually several games, a kind of motorsport dedicated kind of currency.
Yeah, I think that's quite powerful. I think I learned a lot from the sort of top trumps and similar kind of game mechanics where you've got shared information that could be applied in different ways, and locking that into the token I think is very powerful. So Luna, from your guys' point of view, what was the blockchain reason for you?
Well, for us, because we have been making mobile games for a while, and we still are actually making mobile games. We like mobile. Everybody likes mobile, obviously. Yeah. Pocket gamer, hello. But but it's very hard to compete, really, especially because we were, a small studio in Manila. If you don't have, let's say, a big IP, or you're not with a big publisher with, a bottomless UA wallet, it was hard for us to create new stuff, really. And when blockchain happened, we saw it as a new gaming platform. I'm going to get in trouble for this because I'm a game designer. I'm not really a coder. And so the way I explain blockchain to people is, if you think of it as a new platform, like if you think of it as a new console, right? Wouldn't you be excited to be first? Like with all the new stuff that you can do on the blockchain with your games, right? Stuff that you couldn't do before. You can do it on the blockchain, and that's how I approached it. And so, I mean, obviously everybody in this room knows interoperability and ownership and stuff. But for me, the fact that we get to define the rules now, right? Because when the blockchain gaming industry kind of started maybe 2 years ago, the community was very, very small, and everybody knew each other. And people are really trying to help each other out, defining the standards, defining, what a good economy is, and I've never seen that in mobile. And it's a little cutthroat in mobile, sorry. So I feel very positive about blockchain, not just from a player perspective, but also as a developer perspective. All of the cool stuff we can do together, that's what excites me personally.
I think it's interesting kind of, when you remind us it's basically a 3-year-old industry.
Yeah.
Essentially blockchain games. And if you go back further, games itself are generally only 30 years old. And film and TV is just over 100 years old. So, we are talking about media which are incredibly new. Mm-hmm. And like you say, the ability to experiment and actually make the mistakes. But in some ways, we have a kind of, do you think we have a responsibility to think ahead and to plan? Or is it just whatever happens, whatever works wins?
I don't know how much planning we can seriously do, especially in this space. Everything changes so fast. And it's a reason why roadmaps are called roadmaps. But I think it is our responsibility, especially with the people that I've met in these conferences, is to do it ethically, right? There were some blockchain games that weren't so ethical before. And so how do you put it so the players first, that it's fair, your tokenization is fair, right? And all these discussions that we're having in the conference and at night, I think it's important we all talk and do that together.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I do wonder, I suppose maybe it's because I've been around, I'm old, I've been around too long. I do see the same patterns happening time and time again. And I think a lot of the lessons we saw in the very earliest of Java games are very similar to the lessons we've seen in some of the earliest crypto games, where they're not arguably games, they're more collections or they're more interactions. And as we evolve, what we find, I think, is there are certain patterns of gameplay that are easily communicatable to players. And the more we build on that and take the advantage of the technology's capacity to do interesting things, then we start changing minds. But so, Alex, in terms of this way of thinking, what actually do you practically do with your blockchain?
So what happens is the assets are fully owned by the player. That's number one. Yeah. And we have given them the ability to grow the asset. So what happens is, if you look at CryptoKitties from the traditional, they went with the breeding route, where you continue to generate more assets. So we were a bit hesitant with this. So we explored new ways to do it, which is where you get a crab. Mm-hmm. You continue to grow your crab by mutating different parts. And we've also implemented something called the xenograft. So what happens is, in major cases, what happens is they tend to generate more and more tokens, right? So it kind of makes the value drop. Eventually, it's an eventuality. So we implemented a xenograph feature, which actually allows you to not destroy the asset, but it takes it out of the competitive zone, and it gives it a new function. So this way, you can kind of maintain a balance in terms of the value of the asset, and at the same time, you're still enhancing it, because you do transfer a part over to your main asset, and it makes it stronger.
So it sounds dangerously like you're building an economy.
Yeah, in a way.
I'm kind of joking, but I'm kind of not. I think actually a lot of this game mechanics we're talking about is understanding about sinks and sources.
Exactly.
And it's one of the sort of most complicated areas. It's hard to find consensus about what works and what doesn't, particularly because every game genre has its own little piece. But I think the fundamental principles of system level thinking, I think, is key to making this blockchain mechanic work in games. Especially in ours.
Because, so after that, we kind of drive the economy with player-based economy. So we see a lot of trades among different players, and the demand for the assets doesn't go away. So it tends to be like holding this very precious crypto kitty, for example. I don't want to sell it because the value is there. But because of our xenograph system, it allows you to, hey, I want that specific part, and you have it. So now I kind of want it. And then you trade it over. So for example, then in tournaments, when you win a new crab, you might get a good part that somebody else may want. So it kind of builds that player economy that helps it work.
It's interesting because I think Alex from Maxfinity was talking about the Black Lotus, which was a classic Magic card. Yeah. I never had a Black Lotus, but I did have the Mox Ruby, which was the red equivalent, which I sold for £60, and it's now worth about £60,000. Anyway, but my point is, I think I'll move on to you. You know, how many developers actually understand? So in the Cocos-BCX environment, how many developers actually understand this kind of thinking, this system-level thinking? And is it rare? Is it a rare thing that they get it, or is it something that you guys are helping people get?
We have to be honest that for most of the developers so far, when they hear blockchain, they feel very scary. Yeah. It's still a very scary term, yeah. And also, it's true, you just mentioned that we are not using the blockchain technology in the full capacity. So far, when we see most of the games on blockchain, they use the blockchain to assetize the asset onto the blockchain, the crypto assets, right? That's why there are not such a great variety so far coming out. And what we, from the Cocos-BCX side, we mainly do the infrastructure building, so we build the tools. So what we are doing right now is we study what the developers will need for them to do games on blockchain, and we design these tools to help them, to help their life easier and make the entry barrier lower for developers. And so far, we do have some solutions already launched on our platform. For example, we have some developers here. So if you want to have a blockchain more playful, you may consider about more business models within your game, right? For example, you have NFTs in your game, right? So besides trading the NFT on the marketplace, you can do other things using our tools. For example, lending, collateralization, mortgage, etc. Yeah. So these we have already designed and launched. And besides, we also consider about other form of games. For example, like lucky draws, raffles. Right now, it's very popular on blockchain. But how do we ensure the total fairness and transparency of it? So we designed solutions for trustable randomness on chain. Yeah, 3 kind of trustable randomness on chain. There are kind of also other solutions that we already implemented on our platform, and we welcome the developers to check out and also try out these tools. We provide the possibilities, and it's depend on you guys to do the creative part. Yeah.
I think one of the experiences I had when I was wearing my Unity hat, it was always the case where we had to show developers what they could do before they would take the leap, and also before they would trust that it was okay. Do you find that same experience?
Exactly. That's what we are doing. So we launched 3 to 6 sample games on our platform, and some of them already open sourced. And one is the Cocos shooting game, and the classic plane shooting, and the other one is dice and the slot machine. So these games, the developers can just copy the code base and change the skins and do the updated versions in their ways. And also, Wallet is a gateway for most of the games on blockchain. So we also launched the 5 wallets for mobile, desktop, and Chrome extension. These are all basic functionalities with open source code base, so everyone can just copy it and implement in their games and do their own versions. Yeah, this is how we teach the developers.
It means that you see loads and loads of those games up on the app stores, and that's okay. That's okay, because everyone's got to learn.
That's a start. We have to say that the first game on Apple iPhone 1, it's a slot machine game, right?
Exactly. But I think that's actually okay, because whether it's on mobile or it's on web pages, it doesn't matter. I mean, people have to release to understand. It's not just a case of making the game; it's actually putting it live. That is where I think all the lessons come from. Amazing. So, Nathan, from your point of view, I mean, what are the practical things? What I particularly with, obviously, with Seb and the Sandbox stuff is the fact that it's being used in a way that's specifically about content creation, rather than being front and center in terms of gameplay, which I think a lot of people just default to. Oh, people want to earn money playing games. No, that's not the case. A lot of people don't want to earn money playing games, because if they start earning money playing games, it starts blurring the boundary between their work life and their play life, and that can be quite detrimental. But some people love doing that. And that's where the content creator UGC come. I'm talking too much.
Do we know if it's detrimental or not?
Well,
actually, do we have data on that?
Yes, actually, there is some good data on that. Yeah.
I think it's really an exciting thing that blockchain is bringing that was not really possible before. It's like incentivizing the players or the users in general, but since we are doing games, the players, right? Like there are mechanisms like kind of reward pools and other types of referral, incentivization, and etc., which can be totally automated on chain. And I think it's a great opportunity for people to really get more excited about coming and returning to this game experience, because you are actually getting something real from it. Not only enjoyment, but also money, basically.
Well, again, you can do. I was just going to add one quick thing to that. The issue is that I think there's a certain subset of personalities which actually get excited about earning through play, but there's actually also I can't remember what the paper was, but it's a fantastic paper out there talking about people's motivations. And play is an escape from reality, is a massive component of certain audiences. It's often basically very much in parallel with the distinction between gambling players versus game players. Gambling players are absolutely happy earning money playing, but actually the reason why social casino type games, which were not payout, was so successful was precisely because nobody wanted to have the uncomfortable fear that you wouldn't, you'd much rather pay for something and never get the money back than have the fear of losing the money they thought they should be theirs. So there's some really interesting studies out there. But anyway, you were saying, Luna.
Oh yeah, sorry, I just because we're talking about the different types of gamers and stuff. So I'm a gamer through and through, and I'm a free-to-play gamer through and through, which is the worst, right? Because we don't want to pay for anything. But I didn't fully understand NFTs until I watched Sneakerheads on Netflix. Did anybody see that? It's a great documentary on sneaker collectors. So there are 3 types of sneakerheads, if I remember right. Okay, there's the person who buys sneakers because they wear them, which is me. Right? I like a nice shoe, but I'll wear it. There's a second type of sneakerhead where they will buy it just to own it, and they'll never take it out of the box. And they have rooms full of boxes of every single colorway, of every single whatever special edition, and they will fly around the world. And I like that there are people like, okay. So they're collectors, right? Which I didn't understand, but okay, wow, that's amazing. And there was a third type, which was the sneakerhead that would line up in the early morning to get the first limited edition drop of a shoe, and I've seen this happen in Manila. It will sell out within minutes, and then they would go and flip it for like ×5, ×10 the price immediately. They have no intention of wearing it. They have no intention of owning it or keeping it. They're just flipping it. And so when I saw that documentary, it became very clear to me that just because I like to use my shoes doesn't mean that there isn't an entirely different market of people who are playing this game a completely different way. And so when we design our blockchain games, I feel like it's almost 2 different games. You have the gameplay aspect, right? For the people who want to use their NFTs and add value through utility. And then you have these other people who have 0 interest in playing the game, but just want to make a quick buck or a big buck, right? And while I understand that there are some people who are uncomfortable shelling their money out, that's this side, right? The other side are the people who will spend 6 figures on an NFT and flip it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now that is exactly why. Oh, you wanted to come back on that? Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I totally agree that usually in the traditional gaming, you're really targeting one type of players for one type of game or type of experience. But when we design blockchain games, we are actually tapping into different pools and different type of personalities. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly why I was hoping you'd come up with. Because I mean, again, when we were doing the Reality Clash weapon tokens, we were thinking about, okay, we've got people who want to have fun with their mates. We've got people who want to be seriously good at actively, physically in the real world, using virtual reality to shoot each other, and want the best equipment to do that, and are willing to pay for the best equipment to do that. And then we wanted the people who are going to be speculator, basically digital weapon salesmen. We have digital gun runners, basically. I mean this in a positive, entertaining way, honestly. But that's the very, very different segmented market. So I wanted to go explore that a bit more with you, Luna. You're saying you incorporate this thinking into your game design. I mean, what are the practical kind of takeaways these guys can sort of get from the kind of lessons you've learned with dealing with those different audiences?
Well, it helps to have a crypto whale on your team. So, and we have this discussion in our design team all the time. So I have game designers, some of them are here in the room. And because we're so used to mobile games, you will game it so you get the maximum value possible without paying. That's a mobile gamer for you, right? The crypto gamer or the crypto whale is completely different, and Gabby is one, and he's probably at a meeting, but yeah. So it was very helpful to come at the design of Battle Racers from two completely different aspects. So I would focus on the gameplay and how to add value to our NFTs, which are the cars that you race, through time, right? So the usual, you race them to level them up, they have a recorded history, etc., etc. And then Gabby's coming from the point of, okay, so how do I flip that car? If I don't have time to play, or I have zero interest to play, how do I play this game? And so there's a completely different marketplace that is separate from our in-game experience, which is inside Decentraland. And we are designing for fun for both things. So I foresee people who are going to play the game in the marketplace and never set foot inside Decentraland, and that's fine. Unless you're from Decentraland. And there are going to be people who are going to sign up for Decentraland and have all this fun in the virtual world, etc. And that's fine too. Both have to be good. My ideal player is somebody who does both, right? Somebody who adds value through gameplay to their NFTs, goes to the marketplace, and flips it, right? But I foresee that to be a smaller segment.
Yeah, and I think it's really thinking about the dynamics between those two groups, because to a certain extent, the game players are partly the audience for the people who are flipping.
Yeah.
And equally, the fact that there are people flipping make access to assets they might not have otherwise been able to get hold of now potentially possible, but it making the economy the driver for that, or at least the secondary part of the economy. We get so many tiers with blockchain now. It's like so hard. Is that a fair summary though? Is it these have to be aligned personality groups essentially to really get the most out of it?
Well, I think that you just have to make sure that the game has different price points and different entry points. And one of the things we're doing is, because we're coming from a free-to-play background, is we want people who don't own NFTs to be able to play. And now that's getting a little more common, but 6 months ago that was ridiculous, right? Like, of course you have to sign up for a wallet and buy NFTs to play your NFT game. So in Decentraland, because it's a world and people are walking around, they don't know anything about our game, they're able to walk up to our racetracks and test drive cars. And so what that means is, if you don't have any cars in your wallet, it's just like going to a car dealership, can I test drive your car? Sure, you don't get to bring it home with you. So you can test drive these cars and race with everybody else. You can't win anything. But we feel like that will get people to be interested in, hey, I like that person's car. How do I get that? Oh, now you go to the marketplace and stuff, right? And so you have to, for me, I think you have to build it in for every single type of player, which is very difficult. And we're not out yet, so a lot of this is untried and untested, but I'm hoping that it's going to work.
So, I mean, Alex, I assume a lot of this stuff is familiar to you, but given the amount of time we have left, what's the kind of one thing that you think that people in the room should take away from the lessons you've learned making games? What should this audience take with them? Okay,
just one question. How many of you here are developing blockchain games? Okay, so we actually have blockchain games here, right? I think one of the biggest pain points is 6 months ago, like you mentioned, the idea of not having an NFT to play a game, it wasn't there, right? And you've probably already built your infrastructure on Ethereum or whatnot. I think one of your pain points would be user acquisition, I think, right? And I give you all one plus. Because Facebook went into Libra, they had to lax their rules for Facebook advertising, so that's now open to you. I'd just like to let you all know that. Yeah, that's a very important point.
Okay, I need to add some remarks following my previous statement. Otherwise, people think that Cocos is promoting gambling games only. Yeah, no. What I mean that open source the sample games is that because these sample games proved the solution of the trustable randomness on chain, and also like a timer on chain, and these will be very useful for the game developers if you want to deploy your blockchain games on our platform. And I think so far we are the first one and the only one providing these solutions already realized, implemented. And also talking about NFT, we believe this will be a huge market for the game asset trading. So we also foresee that in future on blockchain, there will be mega-sized e-commerce platforms, I mean, asset trading platforms, comparing to the traditional e-commerce market. And NFT can be very playful. So we provided a lot of unique features. We have our own NFT standard called 1808. So it allows, like I just mentioned, lending, collateralization, mortgage, etc. And also like compostable of NFT pieces into a big group. Like you can just smash it and then group it by yourself, mix and match. Cool. Yeah. That's it. I think we are very technical. For the gameplay side, I think these are more expert than I am.
No, but it's useful information for people to get to know that these tools are out there. You know, they're not. You're not alone. You know, never go alone. Always take a partner, and obviously having a toolkit like that is great. So Nathan, what's the one lesson you would sort of suggest for these guys?
Maybe not a lesson, but kind of a general comment on what the blockchain gaming is nowadays. It's a kind of ecosystem which is quite unique in the way that is very collaborative. The different game studios, the different tool providers, pretty much all the participants in the ecosystem are really trying to bring it together, discuss, create standards to build this new platform. I think everybody really believes that it's kind of the next wave of adoption of blockchain will be the gaming, because it makes so much sense. But the ecosystem, at least technically, is still very early. The user experience is not there yet for games which will bring mass adoption. So it's really good to see all these efforts coming from basically all over the world to make it, to bring it together. So it's a very collaborative, it's really great atmosphere, a great startup atmosphere, and I think this is quite unique, actually.
Okay, I guess for me, don't do everything at once. Figure out what about the blockchain excites you and design a game around that specifically. So, like, do you care about item ownership, or maybe you care about recorded history on an item, or maybe you care about having, a decentralized governance, or maybe you care about user-created content, or maybe you care about, putting randomness on the chain. There are so many things you can do with blockchain, but the blockchain games that I've seen fail are those who try to do everything at once. Because blockchain tech is so expensive to experiment with that I feel like if you pick the thing that you like the most about blockchain games and design around that, then you have a winner on your hands. So I don't know if that's pessimistic.
No, I think that's good. I mean, the only thing I'd add to this is I think you're right. Do the one thing, but what I would say is step back and imagine how somebody else might use your assets. How might somebody else use that, like 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the line? Don't necessarily make it for that. Just think about it and make sure you don't, put yourself into an obvious hole. Because if we're going to scale this business, I think it's really important that we think ahead, but just don't try to build everything at once.
I like to answer. Yeah. So, actual real advice for building blockchain game. 2 things. First, build a game.
Yeah.
Not just a technical proof of work of something done with blockchain. And I think sometimes, not only about games, but with blockchain in general, I think people are kind of losing their scope, They build something, but they don't even really think so much about what users want. So really just build a game, first of all, which people will enjoy to play. Second, for using the blockchain around it, think about economy. Don't only think about these are tokens, so since they are scarce, it will be good. You really need to make something meaningful, an entire gaming economy around it, or else it's just like kind of misleading.
It
I would
sounds
say.
basically scary, like when I'm doing lectures to teach people about game design, the first thing I say is think about the player. And it's like so obvious, and yet it's so easy to forget to do.
I think the most basic lesson in all game design or whatever it is when you develop, don't assume that you are your user.
Yeah.
That's the first step, I think. That's what they tend to do. You assume you are your user. So realize that there's a lot of people out there with their own interests and their own things that they want.
Exactly. And that's a great point to end on. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cool, thank you.